Hey y'all, thanks for stopping in. So, some of the biggest news of the year dropped this weekend, and most people probably didn't even notice it. Sam Bankman-Fried will not face second trial on charges including making illegal campaign donations and bribing Chinese officials. So, if you're not familiar, Sam Bankman-Fried is the FTX guy, the billionaire that was living in the Bahamas. And of course, all this news is dropped on a Friday night. You'll look at this article right here. It's published at 21:29. That's 9:29 on December 29th. That's Friday night. Granted, I'm recording this on Sunday, but I've been sick and I want to get a video out before the end of the year, so bear with me a little bit. But as we all know, the news released on Friday is where news goes to die, essentially, fizzles out by the time you get around to Monday. And this time it happens to be a 3-day weekend, which is sandwiched between Christmas and New Year's. The ends in New Year's Day on Monday. So very convenient timing, I would say. I'm actually surprised that I even was able to find this article. I found out about this news on Saturday. I was searching around, and I actually had to dig a little bit to get this article. So anyways, let's just go ahead and find out what we got. Sam Bankman-Fried was convicted last month of stealing from customers of his now bankrupt FTX cryptocurrency exchange. Will not face a second trial on separate charges in the case, including campaign finance violations. In a letter filed on Friday night in federal court in Manhattan, prosecutors said the strong public interest in a prompt resolution of their case against the 31-year-old former billionaire outweighed the benefits of a second trial. You got this tweet over here from DC Drano. Actually, it's an X post. It's X now, it's not Twitter. The DOJ is dropping their campaign finance prosecution of SBF because it could implicate too many powerful politicians in D.C. And guess when they announced it? Friday night before 3-day weekend, drain the swamp. I completely agree. Prosecutors said the interest weighs particularly heavy here, given that Bankman-Fried's scheduled March 28th sentencing would likely include orders of forfeiture and restitution for victims of his crimes. In their letter to the U.S. District Judge Lewis Kaplan, prosecutors noted that they introduced evidence about all of the dropped charges during Bankman-Fried's month-long first trial, which the judge can weigh at sentencing. Last month, jurors convicted Bankman-Fried of all 7 fraud and conspiracy counts he faced. Prosecutors had accused him of looting $8 billion from FTX customers out of sheer greed. Now, what I'm getting from this is basically the judge has seen some of the evidence and can still potentially, and I may be wrong here, but can still potentially sentence Bankman-Fried for the second set of crimes or whatever. But in the process, what it appears is that they will be able to avoid being forced to bring forth evidence of who received payments and just the fine details that come out during a trial, right? None of that stuff will be subpoenaed. None of that stuff would be available to be seen. Thus, hidden, much like the other list, the island list. We know the crime was committed, but we're never going to see who the customers were, right? Bankman-Fried had faced 6 additional charges that had been severed from his first trial, including conspiracy to make unlawful campaign contributions, conspiracy to bribe foreign officials, and 2 other conspiracy counts. The bribery charge related to the allegations that Bankman-Fried made a $40 million cryptocurrency payoff to Chinese officials so they would unfreeze his hedge fund accounts. Evidence at the first trial indicated that Bankman-Fried directed straw donor donations to U.S. political candidates using customer funds as he sought to influence regulations. Bankman-Fried was known as a major donor to Democrats, including Joe Biden's 2020 presidential campaign, but prosecutors say he also contributed to Republican campaigns as part of the alleged illicit donation scheme. So you know what? Fire them all. I don't care if they're Republican or Democrat. If they took money from this guy and if they accepted stolen money from this guy, if it broke campaign violations, we need to find out about it. We need to know who did all this, in my opinion. According to a superseding indictment, Bankman-Fried misappropriated and embezzled FTX customer deposits, including more than $100 million spent in campaign contributions to Democrats and Republicans to seek to influence cryptocurrency regulation. The indictment also alleged that Bankman-Fried concealed the source of campaign donations by making them in the names of various FTX executives, including former engineer director, that guy. At trial, Singh testified that Bankman-Fried directed that money from his Alameda Research hedge fund to be used to make political donations even after he learned the fund owed $13 billion to customers in September 2022. Singh said he continued to receive transfers from Alameda, allowing Bankman-Fried associates to use the money to donate to U.S. Democratic candidates and causes in which he called a straw donor scheme. There was an enormous hole, said Singh on the witness stand. Alameda sending me money to spend necessarily deepened that hole. Bankman-Fried had been extradited in December 2022 from the Bahamas, where FTX was based, to face 7 earlier charges. The Bahamas has yet to grant its consent for a trial on the remaining charges, however, leaving the timetable uncertain, prosecutors said. Bankman-Fried's verdict came nearly 1 year after FTX filed for bankruptcy, erasing his once $26 billion personal fortune in one of the fastest collapses in a major participant in U.S. financial markets. Bankman-Fried could face decades in prison when he is sentenced in March by Judge Kaplan in Manhattan. Prosecutors said much of the evidence that could be offered at the second trial was already presented at the first trial. They also said a second trial would not affect how much time Bankman-Fried could face in prison under recommended federal guidelines because Kaplan could consider all of Bankman-Fried's conduct when sentencing him from the counts from which he was convicted. Why wouldn't a second trial affect Bankman-Fried's time in prison? I believe that it's a bunch of felonies that he would be facing in the second trial. I don't understand. It makes little sense to me other than corruption. You know, rules for thee, but not for me. Bankman-Fried is expected to appeal his conviction. He testified at trial that he made mistakes running FTX, including by not creating a team to oversee risk management, but did not steal customer funds. Bankman-Fried also said he thought the borrowing of money from FTX by his crypto-focused hedge fund Alameda Research was permissible, and that he did not realize how precarious their finances had become until shortly before both collapsed. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology graduate had been jailed since August when Kaplan revoked his bail after concluding that Bankman-Fried had likely tampered with prospective trial witnesses. Interesting stuff, right? I mean, $100 million allegedly going to campaign contributions. That's pretty significant. Then we have this other tweet. The SBF trial somehow gets worse. Sequoia Capital was FTX's top investor, and SBF also invested $200 million in Sequoia's funds. Was Sequoia directing SBF to funnel cash to those in Congress with power to shut down investigations into Sequoia? Did SBF make a China bribe without Sequoia knowledge, whose ranks include Neil Shin, a Chinese government member? Did Sequoia really not know one of its top investments needed to move $1 billion out of China? SBF bribed multiple Chinese officials to free up $1 billion alone. Really? The DOJ is dropping their case against finance prosecution to SBF. It would implicate too many. So there you have it pretty much. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up there. It just seems like more of people on one side of the aisle getting away with tons of things that a person on the other side of the aisle could not get away with a smidgen of, right? So anyways, I hope you guys agree with that. If you do, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Happy New Year to everybody, and I'll see you guys next year.